Hey guys, Rollout here, and welcome back to Builder's Block. This week is a little different. I'm going to try shifting my schedule so that episodes of Builder's Block are a couple days behind. That way I can record each episode a couple of days before it's actually published. Being able to review content in advance pleases corporate overlords, if you catch my drift. Anyway, in order to reset to this format, today's episode only covers 4 days of builds rather than 6, but don't worry, by next week we'll be back to normal on the amount of coverage. Incidentally, it also means that this episode has a theme to it and focuses on a single project that took me about 4 days to complete. I also want to make a little Patreon announcement. I get 2 requests all the time. Make a community Discord server and put your creations up for sale. Well, I'm just letting you know that I have a Discord server accessible through Patreon, and my creations are available for sale by commission to anyone on the server. So, if you're interested in purchasing something that I've built, go check it out. There is a link to my Patreon page in the description. With all of that said and done, battle mode approved, area scanned, battlefield set up. Ready? Fight! So last week I talked about building a Liger 0 to go along with the Berserk Fury that I built. And I started with the legs just to see what was possible. It turns out that quite a bit is possible. All of these new parts that have come out in the last 5 years or so really made this easy to do. I think that these elements and this scale really lends itself well to Zoids. All of this just kind of came naturally to me. All of these pieces just went together in a way I felt very comfortable with, and it is insane to me how much more articulate and how much more accurate this design is than the Liger 0 I made many years ago at such a smaller scale. And yes, all of these new pieces really make this possible, but I think that going forward, if I build Zoids, it's gonna be at this small size, because I just think it works really well. It has all of the proper red poly caps here. I'm unsure about which design of element I want to use for those pieces. I'll talk about that here in just a second. But you can see all of the armor is more or less properly placed. On this first day, I just built 2 of the legs. I wasn't actually sure if I had the pieces to build a second pair. This body is just kind of thrown together so that the legs could sit approximately where they're supposed to in relation to each other. And then I propped the whole thing up on a stand here. Here it is in an action pose, and like I said, I decided to switch out the polycaps on the front leg to the ones that are present on the Berserk Fury. On one hand, I think it would be cool if the 2 of them matched, if both of them had the same caps on their limbs. On the other hand, in reality, Berserk Fury and Liger 0 have a slightly different design in that regard, so I'm on the fence whether they should match or whether they should be different. I think I'm just going to order a bunch of these pieces, enough to put them on Liger 0, put them on, see how it looks, and then decide from there. On the next day, I went ahead and continued my design process on Liger 0. I very well knew that the head design was going to make or break this model. While I really liked the legs, I needed to just nail the likeness of Liger 0 or this was not going to work. And I settled for this, and I think I did a pretty good job. I actually went through several different head designs, and unfortunately I didn't take pictures of a couple of them. I started with a very cartoony design, kind of a much larger head that actually had teeth. I wasn't sure if I was married to the idea of having golden teeth or not. Obviously, Liger 0 has very prominent fangs, but at this scale, I decided that I don't think it's necessary. I think the shape of the overall head is much more important. important. And like I said, I think I captured that fairly well here. Now, I built the tail, I built his cannon on his chest, I built a second pair of legs, obviously, his thrusters, and the stabilizer fins on his side. And while I had all of the key details built here, more or less, I still wasn't married to the body design here. I just sort of threw everything together to get a feel for how it would be placed in relation to everything else. This is very much just a rough draft, just a mock-up as far as the body design goes. Here it is with the Berserk Fury, and scale-wise, they're actually pretty good. I think that mentally, Berserk Fury seems much, much larger than Liger Zero, just because he's very imposing. When those cannons flip out, they give him a lot of presence, but in actuality, they're about the same size. Berserk Fury, I think, is smaller than you think. And so this is more or less accurate, which was unintentional. I just kind of designed Liger Zero based off of memory, based off of what I thought his size was in relation to Berserk Fury. And then after I had both of these built, I decided to do the research. I looked at the Zoids wiki and found out that this is actually pretty darn close to what they're supposed to be. So I am very happy with that. Now, another happy coincidence, something I, believe it or not, did not realize until this moment, was that Liger Zero is designed to be CAS compatible. All of the armor on his limbs can come off. And while the head does need to replace a couple of pieces to accomplish something like this, the majority of the inner frame remains intact. And that's not actually something I designed into these limbs initially. It's just something that is true about them. And yeah, this is certainly getting the noggin jogging. I'm thinking I could make all of the CAS units, which is not something that was remotely possible on my original Liger Zero design. It'll definitely be an investment. I'm not sure how soon I am going to tackle the Jaeger and the Schneider and the Panzer units, maybe even some of the Fusor units as well. We shall see. But I just built this as a proof of concept to show you kind of what he looks like without all of the armor on the limbs. And then I decided to build the head for the Jaeger unit, just to give you an idea of how that would work. You do have to replace like the cockpit forehead assembly with the eyes and everything, just because it's too small for you to actually remove armor on the side of his upper jaw without just replacing the entire piece. But anyway, if I were to build a Jaeger, if I were to actually put in the effort to build the entire CAS unit, I would want it to be dark blue. I think that's a bit more accurate. But something I realized when designing my newest Transformer, Blade Hopper, who has a mostly dark blue color scheme, is that LEGO does not make U-clips in dark blue. There are some colors that certain pieces are just not possible in because every single LEGO color has a slightly different composition to it, and certain colors just don't work for things like hinges and clips and joints, and it would seem that dark blue is one of those. So you can see these U-clips on the ear sections here. Those would not be possible in dark blue, so I'd probably have to redesign that. Or I could just suck it up and make it in normal blue. On the next day, I tweaked the head design just a little bit, and then I reworked the entire body. And this is more like it. Here is Liger Zero mostly complete, although like I said, I am planning on trying out some different polycaps. I'm also thinking about making the cannon on his chest and the cannon on his tail dark gray. I think that contrast would look a little bit better. I'm also thinking about making his claws metallic gold rather than pearl gold for a reason I will explain later. Here is the composition of the body, and I'm really happy with what this accomplishes in such a small size. Any other design I tried had those stabilizer fins, either too far forward or too far back, and this positions that right in the proper place. Also, it retains that 2:1:2 ratio between the shoulders and the hips. It allows for a pivot in the hips as well, although that is the only point of articulation in the torso. You can see a ratchet joint in there, but that is just for structure. It doesn't actually move. It does look a little bit gappy, but I think it's worth it for, once again, what this accomplishes. It doesn't have a rotation or an ab crunch of any kind, but at this scale, I think that's perfectly acceptable. You can see that the tail is in a much nicer, more natural curve than it was before, and that's actually because I left this piece of flex tube in a vise overnight so that it would retain its shape. Here is Liger Zero facing off against the Berserk Fury, and I am pretty happy with this, although at this point I was thinking that Liger Zero is just a little bit more solid than Berserk Fury. I wasn't too happy with a lot of the design choices I made with Berserk Fury last week, and I said that if I successfully made Liger Zero, I would then keep it around. Only then it would be worth it. Now that I've built a Liger Zero, it's time to make a few changes to Berserk Fury, just to make him a little bit more solid. So here's what I did. I reworked his entire torso, just like on Liger Zero. It's a lot more solid now, and the armor placement is a lot more accurate. The legs attach completely differently now. They use these rounded pieces with the bar connected to it, and that allows for like a pivot. It goes in and out, it goes forward and back, and very important for the Berserk Fury, now when the leg goes forward and back, it actually shifts the leg up and down the body so that they can get out of the way of these massive cannons. Speaking of which, the armatures that attach these cannons are a lot different than they were before. That's a lot more accurate. The boosters are a little bit longer, and overall the backpack is just a little bit more compact. Here is a small change I made to Liger Zero on this day as well. I made the back armor just a little bit more substantial, and I added those vents to his hindquarters as well. Just a couple of little accuracy tweaks. Here is Liger and Fury together at last in a state that I am wholeheartedly proud of. I think they both look very good. It does bother me slightly that Liger Zero has proper eyes and Berserk Fury has, kind of hollow shapes, but I think that this likeness of Berserk Fury just sort of captures the expression of the Zoid well enough that I am perfectly fine with those aspects being slightly different. Again, for the same reason, I might want the polycaps to be different as well. But I'm really happy with the solidity of these now, with the scale, and overall, this has kind of got me hooked on building Zoids. Now that I've got these two, the possibilities are kind of endless. And I've already started on a Shadow Fox. I wanted to build a Shadow Fox because Brad, who pilots the Shadow Fox, plays a very pivotal role in the final battle between Berserk Fury and Liger Zero. So at the very least, I would build Shadow Fox to have that kind of final battle display. But from here, who knows what could happen. The reason I am thinking about making the claws on Liger Zero metallic gold rather than pearl gold is because that's the color I'm thinking of making Shadow Fox here. All of these yellow bits come in metallic gold, not all of them come in pearl gold, and I'm thinking I might want the two of them to match. At the same time, on the original toys, Shadow Fox had a metallic gold and Liger Zero just had gold plastic on his claws. So it could really go either way. It'll be another case just like the polycaps where I think I'm going to order the pieces to do it and then see if I like it from there. So now that I'm recording these episodes a little in advance, I can also give you a hint at what's to come at the end of each episode. The answer is more Zoids. So I hope you like Zoids. And it's kind of a problem, because I am completely running out of so many useful pieces. Please send help. Special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my leader class patrons, Valravn, Beyond the Brick, and Beta. Until next time, this has been Rollout, signing off.